Some lights don't guide travelers home. They guide forgotten souls. As a child, I loved spending my afternoons at a small snack stand across from my elementary school. Every day after classes, my friends and I would race to buy cheeseburgers, fries, and cold mango shakes before heading home. The owner knew us by name. She always smiled and told us not to stay outside after sunset. We thought she was simply being protective. Years later, I discovered she had another reason. Our school was one of the oldest in the province. It had survived wars, earthquakes, and countless storms. Teachers often shared stories about strange things happening after dark. Students claimed to hear footsteps in empty classrooms. Security guards reported seeing figures dressed in old military uniforms wandering the campus. Some laughed at the stories. Others avoided the school after sunset. I belonged to the first group until one unforgettable evening. It happened after our final exams. My best friend Nico and I stayed behind to celebrate. We bought our favorite burgers and sat beneath an old acacia tree overlooking the school grounds. The sun had already disappeared. The sky glowed deep orange before fading into darkness. Everything felt peaceful. Too peaceful. As we finished eating, I noticed a tiny blue light floating above the far end of the football field. At first, I thought it was a firefly, but it kept growing brighter. It wasn't blinking. It wasn't moving like an insect. Instead, it hovered silently a few feet above the ground. The strange light pulsed gently, casting a pale blue glow over the grass. "Nico," I whispered. "Do you see that?" He slowly nodded. Neither of us spoke again. The glowing orb drifted toward us. Not quickly, not slowly, just steadily, as though it already knew where we were. The air suddenly became colder. The leaves around us stopped moving. Even the sounds of traffic outside the school disappeared. Everything fell completely silent. The only thing that remained was the floating blue flame. When it reached the middle of the field, it stopped. For several seconds it remained perfectly still. Then the light split into 3 smaller flames. Each one floated in a different direction. One headed toward the old classroom building. Another drifted toward the abandoned flagpole. The third slowly rose into the night sky before disappearing among the stars. The silence ended as suddenly as it had begun. Crickets began chirping again. Cars passed outside the school gate. Everything looked normal, except for us. Neither Nico nor I could explain what we had just witnessed. The following day, we asked the elderly snack vendor if she had ever seen lights like that before. She looked at us for a long moment before quietly closing her food stall. "My grandfather used to tell me about them," she finally said. "He called them the Watchers." She explained that many years ago, before the school was built, the land had served as an evacuation camp during wartime. Several soldiers and civilians never returned home. According to local folklore, mysterious blue flames sometimes appeared on quiet evenings. They never harmed anyone. They simply wandered the land where forgotten lives had once ended. Curious, I searched through the town library. Old newspaper articles mentioned strange blue lights seen near the property for generations. Scientists believed they were caused by unusual gases rising from the ground. Older residents believed otherwise. To them, the lights were silent guardians, spirits making sure history would never be forgotten. Several years passed. I graduated, moved away, and eventually returned to visit my hometown. One evening, I walked past my old school. The snack stand was gone. The acacia tree had grown much taller. As I stood near the gate, a familiar blue glow appeared above the empty football field. It floated peacefully through the darkness before fading into the night. I smiled instead of running. Some mysteries don't need to be solved. Some are simply reminders that every place carries stories long after the people who live them are gone. And every now and then, when the wind is still and the night is quiet, St. Elmo's flame returns to light the forgotten paths of the past.